to make him seem unreliable. I also thought they did a good job on motive. They on direct, Cohen had said that he never really wanted a job in the White House. Well, on cross, we saw private messages to multiple people where Cohen said, yeah, he did want that job, and he was very disappointed when he didn't get it. And then lastly, much has been made about the recording, the secret recording that he made of Donald Trump. Yes, the content of that recording is helpful to showing Donald Trump's knowledge of the Karen McDougal payment. But the fact that it was recorded secretly without Donald Trump's knowledge really seems to undercut this argument that Michael Cohen did things always updating Donald Trump, that he never really went rogue, that he always sought his approval. Well, when you're surreptitiously recording your own client to share it with a third party without their knowledge, that's the kind of thing that is going rogue. So again, the defense did score some points. Were they, body blows? No, they weren't.
And Kush, if you're part of the jury, who do you think has come across as more credible in this trial so far, Trump or Cohen?
Well, it's hard to say because, unlike Christie, I haven't been in the room for this testimony, so I don't want to render any kind of verdict on their credibility. But, I have to say, I think that, if you're asking that question, it's not really a great sign for the prosecution because they need to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you believe that Michael Cohen is an essential part of the government's case, which I think he is, no prosecutor would have called him unless he was. Then it's not enough to say you believe, Michael Cohen more than Trump. I mean, if it's a battle of who's the most honest, I mean, that's not a good position for the government to be in.
Tom, Trump's lawyers know that to keep him happy, you have to act like him. But do you think Trump's idea of what makes good lawyering actually consistent with reality and a good legal strategy?
Well, this is where I make sure to point out that I am not a lawyer. But it seems to me that Trump doesn't seem to understand that everything is not a TV show. We've seen this over and over again with what he's forced his lawyers to say, what he's forced spokespeople to say, because for Trump, it's all just virtual. It's all entertainment. And he's the main character in this narcissistic reality show. So I doubt that I'm going to assume that some of the kind of whiftier things or shakier things that his lawyers have had to do over the past few years were at his instigation, because they're not bad lawyers. I mean, some of them aren't very good, but he also has hired some pretty good legal talent. And you just have to assume that he, gets them behind closed doors and says, this is what I want you to say. And they shrug and say, well, you're the client. And again, I think it's all because he sees this as not as a show for the public, not as an actual trial in a court of law, which really doesn't mean anything to him.
We saw that a little bit, Christie, with the way Trump's defense went after Stormy Daniels a little bit. They tried to rile her up. How do you rate this effort by Todd Blanche to rile up Michael Cohen, accusing him of lying, trying to get under his skin, trying to get him to be snarky? Does this work for Trump's team, or would that make Cohen more sympathetic to the jury?
So, look, I think Michael Cohen is the one witness where there should be an attack. If anything, I would argue the attack on Michael Cohen should have been sharper than it was. With Stormy Daniels, it was completely ineffective. I agree with that, the comments on that. It's, they were really focused on attacking her credibility about whether or not only the sexual encounter happened, but, calling her essentially a liar because she was a porn star, and saying that because she was a porn star, of course she would have wanted to engage in this encounter, all of which is really irrelevant and besides the point. It's not an issue of consent. It wasn't about, this isn't a sexual assault case. And so I felt like those attacks really did not land with the jury, in particular with the 5 women of the jury and also the women in the public, like just hearing people kind of exiting the courtroom, in particular women, like there was a lot of disgust there. So, with Cohen, I think it's all fair game. This is somebody who, has said a lot of, negative things about Trump as well. And so all of that is completely fair game for his cross.
Ankush, you've written about how Trump's team treated Stormy Daniels. Expand on that from an optics perspective for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with Christie's analysis. I thought that cross of Stormy Daniels was way too sharp, aggressive, extensive, it was odd because at times they seemed to be wanting to suggest she's a liar, and then at times they were sort of in the weeds on certain elements of it. And I think, the cross-examination also didn't seem to go so well because at least, on the second day, Stormy Daniels was a little sharper. She tossed back one-liners just as good as she got them. And, I also completely agree with Christie. If there was going to be one witness, and it was always going to come down to Michael Cohen, he is absolutely the person who is the weakest link in this case, who they should have been going after extremely aggressively. If anything, they should have been diminishing the significance of the government's other witnesses and not putting on lengthy crosses and saving it all for Cohen and making it out as if he's a make or break witness. And I also agree there were sharper lines of attack available for Cohen and sharper ways to build that cross. He still has a little time left, so maybe we'll see what he's got in store for Monday. But it could have been worse.
Tom, I wanted to get your reaction in switching gears here for a moment.